El Toro is one of the greatest roller coasters ever built. It's an Intamin prefabricated Woody located at Six Flags Great Adventure in New Jersey. It opened in 2006 and is one of only 4 of its kind in the world. The only one in this hemisphere. The others are in Sweden, Germany, and South Korea. Wind roller coasters are normally built by hand on site where they're cut in the wood, and with this ride, Intamin cut the track in their factory and then shipped it to the park where it was then constructed piece by piece like a Lego set. A little fun fact for you guys, even though Intamin is the manufacturer, RMC was actually hired to physically build the ride. It was one of their earlier projects before they started building their own rides. The coaster stands a massive 181 feet tall with a 176 foot tall drop. Max speed, 70 miles per hour. These are like steel coaster stats. The fact that this ride is that huge, going that fast, is absolutely insane. First drop, 76 degrees. When I say this is one of the best moments on any roller coaster anywhere, I mean it. This roller coaster really is a work of art. We're going to dive in deep into this thing so you can know what to expect when you go to the park to ride this, because this is a must ride. And I want to really start things off by talking about the first impression that it makes. And this ride has a presence to it. It towers over the rest of the park, even though it's not the tallest thing there. I mean, it literally sits next to Kingda Ka, the world's tallest roller coaster, and this thing still appears massive. It's funny because from one angle, Kingda Ka's Airtime Hill actually looks taller than El Toro. That actually isn't true, but perspective can do a lot. The ride is best defined by that massive lift-hill turnaround and drop, and you see these huge sprawling airtime hills that immediately follow, along with this crazy looking turnaround. The roller coaster starts off as an out and back, but then kind of breaks off towards the end into a little twister section. Almost looks like a little DNA strand. But I really just think that walking up to this thing inspires some kind of feeling in you. I think it has to do with seeing that much wood in such a small space. It doesn't feel right that a wind roller coaster is this big. And I know that technically speaking, there are bigger wind roller coasters out there than El Toro, but it doesn't matter. This ride is just so visually impressive that it leaves a lasting mark on you. I remember seeing this ride for the first time, I was so giddy, and still every time I walk up to it, I get excited. No matter how many times I've ridden this, I always look forward to getting back on El Toro. Now, the roller coaster is located in the Plaza del Carnaval section of the park. It's got this overall Spanish theme. I mean, El Toro literally means the bull, and there is the bull right out front of the roller coaster. But there isn't really any theming with this ride. The station does look very cool. That was actually left over from a previous roller coaster that occupied this land. But I don't even really care that this roller coaster isn't that well themed. I think it more than makes up for it. You will want to make sure that you don't have any loose articles when you go to ride this thing. Great Adventure is pretty tight about making sure that you have nothing in your pockets. They don't want any loose articles flying off on this ride, because this ride is notorious for being a phone eater. Don't make that mistake. Now, when you go to choose your row on this ride, I know I always typically recommend the front and the back, but I seriously think that is the case with this thing. You need to get a front row ride on El Toro at some point. I know it's a longer wait, but trust me, it's worth it. I personally think I like the front a bit more than the back. The drop obviously wins being in the back, but those other elements are just phenomenal in the front. Now, if you're sitting towards the back, I would actually not recommend the very last row. I would say sit in the second to last row. And that's because these are 3 bench cars. The last row of each car is going to be a wheel seat. It's going to feel a little bit rougher there. If you go in the middle row of each car, it's going to feel smoother. El Toro is a wind roller coaster, so it does have a bite to it, even though it's prefabricated. I think the fact that it was pre-cut track does mean it's going to be smoother than most wind roller coasters, but it's still not glass smooth like some of these RMCs, hybrids, or whatever. Now let's dive into this layout. One of the coolest things, right after you roll out of the station, you start with a cable lift hill. I mean, how many wind roller coasters can say that they start with a cable taking you up to the top? Very, very few, and it is an awesome way to start this ride because it pulls you up to the top fast. You get a great view all around you, especially when you reach the top. You're looking straight at Kingda Ka and even the safari off to the side. You got this nice slow turnaround to take in the view, help builds your anticipation, and then El Toro starts with a bang. One of the most incredible moments on any roller coaster. That first drop is unbelievable. El Toro is packed with ejector airtime, and you go flying, especially towards the back of the train. And it really keeps that pace with each airtime hill. I know one of my favorite things about this ride isn't something you're even going to notice while you're riding it. It's actually when you're standing off to the ground. When you see that train flying over, listen to the sound it makes. It's a very distinct noise. That right there are the upstop wheels. That's how much force the train is taking this thing as it goes over each of these hills. It's unbelievable. Like, that's the sound of good airtime right there. El Toro has an absolutely killer beginning. Even this turnaround is pretty fun. It's pretty snappy. Banks you up high, then throws you down to the bottom, and then you crest back up. Now, here's where it starts to get a little iffy. El Toro is not a perfect roller coaster, and depending on when you ride this, there are some moments where it can feel a little slow. Coming up after that turnaround into these next little hills can be one of those moments. It's one of the reasons why I really recommend riding this ride later in the day. In the morning, I know that they'll front load the trains with water dummies to make sure it doesn't valley. That's mainly a problem towards the end of the ride. You can just physically see some parts where it starts to lose just a little bit of momentum. I still love this thing to death, but it can be a little temperamental. These smaller hills on the return trip are not ejector crazy like going out there. In fact, I would say these hills are, if anything, floater airtime. They're not these crazy OMG moments, but one thing I think they do really well are these head chopper effects. There's so much wood that the trains are flying directly under. It's a great near miss. I just think the profiling is a little strange, especially this hill right here. It's very drawn out and almost more triangle-like. But I like how this next hill, you then bank to the left, fly under some other beams that seem to serve no real purpose other than offering as a near miss. And then we get to what might be the best part of El Toro. It's a tough call, but this is the Rolling Thunder Hill. It's called that because it passes over a section of track that was occupied by the Rolling Thunder roller coaster. That ride is no longer there, but they did leave that small section of track that the ride passes over, maybe because it was too complicated to remove, maybe it's to pay homage to its history. Whatever the reason, this hill is ridiculous. It's one of the best airtime hills on any ride anywhere. And El Toro follows it up with 3 very fast-paced, rapid banking turns. You are literally right up against the ground, right, left, right. It's one of the reasons why I think this ride is a perfect combination of airtime and intensity, because you have really cool moments like this. Now, when you reach that turnaround, this is where El Toro can be a hit or a miss. Because what happens is you rise up a little bit, and then you have to go into 2 more turns. These are some sideways banking hills. You pop up and twist to the side, and that's what takes you into the brake run. And when I was talking about how in the morning this thing runs slow, this is really the part where it starts to be an issue. I think more so than some other rides, El Toro can offer some drastically different ride experiences based off of time of year and time of day. So just something to be aware of. Overall though, I love this ride to bits. Honestly, my biggest complaint about it isn't even how it can be a little bit slow at times. It's actually that I really wish there were seat pads on this thing. While I really enjoy the restraint design in the train setup, the physical seats themselves do not have a seat bottom. It's just this hard fiberglass. It really needs a cushion or something there because the airtime is so aggressive that your butt just slams down on it. It can hurt a little, especially if you're sitting on a wheel seat. If they were able to add seat bottoms or something, I think that would make this a perfect roller coaster. So yeah, for its final score, I'm giving El Toro a 10 out of 10. I really think it deserves it. To me, it's one of those must-do attractions, a thing that no matter how many times I do it, I always look forward to going back around, lapping this thing as many times as I can. And even though I've gone on and ridden what I consider to be better roller coasters, this thing will always still have a place in my heart. I don't see it ever leaving my top 10. It's that good. So I want to hear from you guys down in the comments below. What do you think of El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure? Post all those thoughts below, and of course, stay tuned for more coaster reviews here at Coaster Studios, and I'll see you next time.